All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, yet kind of quiet, architectural shift happening deep inside Google's Android ecosystem. If you've been noticing that the app environment on your phone feels like it's changing rapidly, or if you're a developer suddenly jumping through a million new hoops, well, you're absolutely in the right place. So let's get into it.
Now, usually, when you download an app, you naturally assume Google's done its homework to keep you and your device safe, right? But the source material we're looking at today poses a truly critical, honestly, kind of startling question. What if the main thing Google is protecting isn't you? What if, behind the scenes, they're actually protecting themselves? According to our source, there's a much deeper agenda playing out here. To really grasp this, we're going to lay it all out. First, we'll step inside the digital fortress. Then, we'll look at the official security story. After that, we'll uncover the real drivers here: legal shields and centralized control, protecting the ad empire and the gray zone of secrecy. And finally, we'll wrap up with the ultimate digital trade-off. Okay, let's get moving. Part 1, Inside the Digital Fortress. Okay, so we first need to establish what the modern Play Store actually is today. Because, spoiler alert, it is no longer the Wild West of the early smartphone days. It has morphed into a literal walled garden. Think of this whole rigorous authorization process like a really strict digital bouncer standing at the door of your phone. This bouncer is there to dictate permissions, control access, and force developers to ask permission for almost every single thing an app does. And the main goal here? To keep the absolute worst-case scenarios completely away from that device in your pocket. Part 2, the official security story. Now, if you listen to Google's public-facing argument for why this digital bouncer needs to be so tough, our source points out that it actually sounds perfectly reasonable. I mean, it's exactly what we want to hear. It essentially breaks down into 4 main pillars. You've got user security, stopping nasty viruses, phishing, and ransomware right in their tracks. Then you have privacy enforcement, then quality control, filtering out those terrible battery-draining apps. And ultimately, all of this builds trust. Because let's face it, if you don't trust the ecosystem, you're not going to download anything. And look, privacy isn't just some nice PR talking point anymore. It is a very strict legal mandate. We're talking about heavy regulations like the GDPR in Europe that carry absolutely massive, crippling financial fines if you mess up. These laws essentially dictate that a basic, simple Sudoku game has no business secretly reading your text messages, right? It forces platforms to lock down what apps can and can't do by default to ensure really granular control over our personal data. Part 3, legal shields and centralized control. But here's where it gets really interesting. Our source argues that this official story actually conceals a much deeper agenda, driven by a pretty brilliant legal maneuver. It works in 3 steps. Step 1. The developer has to explicitly ask for permission to access a feature. Step 2, Google documents that answer, creating a permanent ironclad paper trail. And step 3, this is the kicker. The liability shifts entirely to the developer. It's basically legal insurance. It masterfully takes the crushing pressure of regulations like the DMA, DSA, and GDPR and just slides that risk right off Google's shoulders and onto the developers. Which brings us to the second hidden driver, re-centralization. Look, Android used to be famous for being this permissive, open platform, a totally modular sandbox of incredible innovation where users had immense freedom. But that era, it's basically ending. Google is executing a deliberate architectural shift to pull power away from the edges and yank it straight back to the center. They're transforming Android into a tightly governed product under absolute corporate command, ensuring every little thing passes through their specific checkpoints. Part 4, protecting the ad empire. Now, our source argues this next point might actually be the biggest motivator of the whole shebang: the money. We hear a lot of noise about Google taking a 15 to 30% cut of Play Store fees. And yeah, for sure, that's a ton of cash. But if you look at the big picture, that revenue is absolutely dwarfed by the overwhelming mountain of money generated from Google Ads. Advertising isn't just a side hustle for Google, it is literally the engine that runs the entire machine. And that engine has to be protected at all costs. So, how exactly do you protect that massive ad pipeline? Well, you use what the source calls the kill switch. Under this new permission system, Google can just categorize network analysis tools and ad blockers as sensitive. And by slapping that sensitive label on them, under the super convenient excuse of protecting user security, Google suddenly has the power to slow down, neuter, or totally ban any app that tries to shine a light on the murky world of digital advertising. It completely neutralizes any threat to the ad money. Part 5.
the gray zone of secrecy. But what about the apps that aren't malicious malware, but still pose a huge headache for Google? Welcome to the gray zone. The irony here is that the people relying on these deep inspection tools are actually the good guys. We're talking about investigative journalists trying to track data leaks, anti-surveillance activists, security researchers, professional pen testers. They genuinely need these advanced tools to find security holes, to see exactly where our data is secretly being sent, and to defend against corporate or state-level snooping. The real problem for Google isn't that these gray zone apps are doing something illegal. It's that they make the invisible visible. Any tool that exposes system limits or pokes around a platform's defenses is seen as a direct threat to total control. Like pretty much any massive tech giant, Google strongly prefers its system to operate as a black box. They want it perfectly opaque, where the inner workings and data flows can't just be easily audited or challenged by independent researchers. Part 6. The ultimate digital trade-off. So, having explored the official PR story versus the hidden drivers, we need to synthesize this down to the fundamental choice staring every single Android user in the face right now. It's a massive trade-off. On one hand, you have the undeniable pro, a highly secure environment. It is objectively incredibly difficult for malware to enter your phone now. But the cons? We're talking zero transparency, an uninspectable system, and basically a total loss of user control over your own device. Those powerful tools for customization and deep analysis, they are fading fast.
And this all builds up to our source's ultimate, really hard-hitting conclusion. Security is the argument, control is the objective. Think about that for a second. User safety is the flawless, universally accepted public justification. It's brilliant because it's exactly what we all want, but behind the curtain, the primary objective driving all these massive legal maneuvers and structural changes is total, centralized control over the entire ecosystem. Which leaves us with a final, really provocative thought to wrap up this explainer. We absolutely all want our digital worlds to be safe from the bad guys. But as the walls of these perfectly safe walled gardens get higher and higher, are we accidentally just building our own prisons? What do we actually lose when the platforms we rely on for everything become perfectly safe but completely 100% opaque? It is a massive trade-off happening right there in your pocket, and it's absolutely something we need to keep paying attention to. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking those big questions.